Hello, my name is Linda Watson, and welcome to Inspire Me Equine, a season of the podcast Inspire Me Forward. I'm the founder and host of this sacred circle. Recently, it came into our hearts that Equine Leadership and Inspire Me Forward should collaborate. Equine Leadership is a publication of short stories sharing the voice and wisdom of the horse. It's now going into its 11th year. Inspire Me Forward, in its third year, is a podcast platform sharing stories of life and all of the pieces that hold it together, even when it might feel like it's falling apart sometimes. This moment in time seemed like the perfect evolution of the two. It felt natural to invite the horses and authors from Equine Leadership. In this space, they will share their own unique ways of bringing the voice and wisdom of the horse to the human world. So, this season, we will delve into the horse-human relationship and the paradigm that is the herd in Inspire Me Equine. Equine leadership has a unique vision. We believe that horses, living as close to nature as possible, can provide a paradigm of living that is clear, authentic, and heart-based. There is much to learn that is good for all of humanity, as well as the collective that we call Earth. Spending time observing and interacting with the paradigm of the horses is a move to simplify life, to connect with something profound and enlightening. Their natural way of life offers insight into our truest paths. When we step outside of the ring and into the herd, we experience a relationship of equity and compassion. So before we begin, let us take a moment to breathe, connect our hearts with the present moment, and invite the horses to join us in this space. So nice to land here in the present moment, and thank you to the horses that have come in. And on we go to episode 37, and this season with Inspire Me Equine. I keep saying Inspire Me Forward. And today's guest is Debbie La-Haye of Horses Helping People. And I'm so happy to have you here, Debbie. I love when we get a chance to talk and chat. And Debbie, I'm just going to give you a minute to introduce yourself.
So I'm Debbie, and I set up Horses Helping People, which is in Buckinghamshire in England with my partner. And it's a therapeutic horsemanship centre. So um, people come to us from all kinds of different backgrounds, children and adults, to spend time with the horses. And that's what I enjoy spending my life doing.
And it's such a beautiful place. I have had the great fortune of spending some time there, and oh, it's just there's a there's such a feeling about your place. It's such a feeling of heart
Oh,
and calmness that
there's a lot of love for the horses there that just builds up and builds up and builds up.
absolutely. Even though you have this wonderful train track that goes
Yeah.
alongside, it becomes background, I imagine,
It
after.
becomes part of it. Actually, sometimes, we incorporate it in the sessions. So it has a life of its own.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So as we said, the Inspire Me Equine is a collaboration between Inspire Me Forward and Equine Leadership. And Debbie is one of our alumni writers who has written several times. She wrote in the fifth volume, and her article there was called, or her story was called The Ultimate in Less is More, How Hanging Out with the Herd Can Change Our Lives. And then we came on to the ninth edition, and she wrote this beautiful article called Treasure Hunt. And I'm going to come back to that one with a quote to send us forward. But oh, that's such a beautiful article. That just such a Really sat deeply in my heart in that one. And then last year, which was our 10th anniversary, you did the opening feature, which was a poem called The Herd. And I believe it was your mindfulness group that suggested putting that one
That's
forward.
right. It's one we always use in our mindfulness courses, and yeah, a
Oh,
special one with the group.
it is, and it's such a perfect invitation to sit down and take in all that is the horses. So I'll go back to the treasure hunt, and I'm just going to jump off or to put this out there and then just go forward. But in the treasure hunt, you said, "May horses ever be our safe space, and we theirs." That's just, I love that one. I love that one. It just sits deeply and rings true. That
Yeah,
it's based on this equality and this reciprocity of offering these safe spaces both, not just one way, but both ways.
yeah.
And being
And
that.
with the work we're doing with people, safeguarding is a major thing, but
Hmm.
it needs to be with the horses as well. What do horses need?
Yeah, what do they
We all
need
want
the
to feel
most?
safe, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'd like to start with a question for you.
Mhm.
I'd like you to share one of your most memorable moments with a horse. And I know you've had millions of moments with horses, but is there
How do I
one that
choose?
is there one that jumps out to you?
Well, I decided to work on the principle that, I've had so many wonderful moments. And the wonderful thing about horses is that they do provide us with these memorable moments. So, there'll be another one next week and the week after. That's the great thing. So on that basis, I decided to go for one of the most recent, which happened last weekend. And it was a powerful one for me. I was lucky enough to be up in the Lake District in the north of England, which is a beautiful, beautiful
Mhm.
place. And I was there on a course with Learning Wild, which is a wonderful organisation that I've been on courses with, run by Bonnie Mealand and Emily Kearson. And it's all about applied ethology. We watch and study free living horses to get ideas about how we can improve the lives of our own domesticated horses. I mean, people will get all sorts of things out of the courses, but the idea of these 3 days were to go up on the fells, the hills in the Lake District, where the native fell pony live wild. They are owned by people, they are handled to varying degrees, but their everyday life involves the choices that they want to make living in family bands. So on the last day, we went up to the fell where we knew there was a group of 6 with a foal. This happened to be a group of infoal mares and one had been born. And we were a fairly large group, about 12 of us. So we split into 2 smaller groups. And a lot of what we do on those courses is think about how we can slide into the horses world with the minimum disruption to them. So we don't want to, it's getting the balance, isn't it? Because we don't want to sneak in as predators.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get the energy of what feels least disruptive to the horses. And we went up, so we were within distance where we could watch them, but we could see that the horses were really settled. It was a hot day, so they were snoozing against the wall. And we sat down, and then the group were just so settled. It felt right just to lay down because if we were going to enter their world, why not hang out like them?
Mhm.
So for me, it felt wonderful because I'm very used to taking people around horses where I have to be responsible for their safety because they've never been around horses before. So I'm helping them with that. But I was with a group of wonderful other participants on the course. What an amazing group it was. And I felt really comfortable with the fact that they could take care of themselves.
Mhm.
And so it meant that we could really relax and switch off like the horses. So I lay down on the fell. So I'm on the ancient turf.
Mm.
One of the other participants described it like laying on the heartbeat of the land. The thing with this 3 days, it was all about seeing the fell ponies in the environment that they had evolved to be in. And it wasn't just watching a group of horses that had been put somewhere. They'd been there for hundreds, thousands of years. And rather than being a study of them, it just became totally being with them. So we were laying there, time stood still. It was one of those horse time things. Minutes and hours didn't exist. I just lay on my side and soft focus was with those horses. So no one was asking anything of anyone else. And we just all breathed together and shared the space. What a privilege that was. It
Mhm.
was very often when we think of memorable moments with horses, it's quite intimate moments. It might be one special horse but this felt big picture stuff. This was history, environment, heritage, just all of us in the same world together. Wow.
Mhm. That was beautiful. Wow. And it's like it's all, there isn't, you talked about time and,
Mm.
but when we really let it, all that go, there is no time.
No,
Like you talked about the history and the land and the environment, but it's all just, it just is.
exactly. It all trickles into just a flow, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
it's getting in that flow sometimes with with the horses, for example, because it was an unseasonably hot weekend. The joke in England is that in the Lake District it always rains, whatever season it is. But we had hot, hot days.
Yeah.
So the ponies were maybe, snoozing for longer, trying to get away from the flies and that, although they were very sort of calm.
Mhm.
And, that that was the thing when you go to observe free living horses, they do what they want, don't they? That's the point of it.
Mhm.
So why not slip into rather than sitting there and kind of waiting for something to happen and
Mhm.
why not just lay down and have a little doze too? And
Right.
like the horses with their gentle awareness of the world around them,
Yeah.
so did we,
Exactly.
but could have been forever. Oh, it was a powerful thing.
I
And
bet. Yeah.
run in conjunction with the Fell Pony Heritage Trust, which are doing great work up there,
Mhm.
which helped to bring the whole history and it is a heritage of the Lake District, but I left there feeling so much that it's all our heritage.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Just to have the places like that where the environment, the animals, including the people, everything
Mhm.
is connected, which is, I guess, is what we're, you know, losing a lot in the world we live in at the moment.
Absolutely. I had the honor of doing that in the New Forest
Mm.
years ago, and that I was to ask you about how did your senses change? I found sitting and watching and just being with our a sense we became very much more present, and I found my senses became much more attuned, similar to the herd that's just calm yet.
Yep.
How in that sense how would your senses?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the privileges of getting out into very much the horses world is that you're then hearing what they're hearing. Yeah, okay, we hear in slightly different ways, they hear different better than us and our vision is different, etc. But you are just experiencing it. You get out of your head and
Mm,
into your senses.
yeah, yeah.
So we were having a very interesting conversation, actually.
Mm,
if we want to go off on a little
Sure.
tangent here.
Let's tangent away.
I'm lucky enough at home to live in a house which is, you visited Linda, I live in a field with the horses out of my,
Mhm.
and so I have some wildlife around. And very often we'll look out the window and there's a deer or a rabbit. And the other day, Dave said to me, "Oh, the deer's on the lawn." And as always, I went to the window to watch the deer. And for some reason, I mean, we've been doing this for years, but I suddenly start thinking, well, are we the only species? Why do we get so much pleasure at watching other
Yes.
animals? Do other animals do that? And I started thinking around it and why is this? And um, I did write another article a while back about sort of observing the horses at home and going through the day, how the horses might they they take what's the word, signals, if you like, from the world around them.
Mhm.
So if a horse is grazing out in the field and there's birdsong in the background, lovely. But is it an alarm call? Are the birds singing happily? There's maybe a hare. Is the hare laying down in the sunshine, feeling safe, or is the hare stamping its leg and running for cover?
Mhm.
So the signals in the world around help to keep you. We come back to that word of safety.
Mhm.
Now, Emily said a really interesting thing in one of her presentations on the course, which was about what she called foal echoes, which was about horse behavior, where sometimes an adult horse's behavior may be an echo of the foal behavior. So, for example, a foal will suckle, that's comforting as well as providing nutrition.
Mhm.
And as an adult horse, they might choose to stand and doze with their kind of head against their friend's flank. So they're in a similar position to when they were
Mhm.
suckling.
Mhm.
And it's a echo of their foal behavior.
Nice.
So it started me thinking about, well, maybe the fact that I run to the window to see the deer is an echo of when our senses were alive to the world.
Oh, interesting.
So we would have known to watch the deer to know how safe we were. We would have known to see what the rabbit was doing, listen to what the birds were telling us. And maybe it's an echo.
Interesting. Yeah.
I- and then you kind of flip it around and go, I really enjoy watching them. And you think about how we when we look at horses, we very often, or any animal, we
Mhm.
very often apply behavior to them, or they're doing that because
No.
that's what they do for the way that they've evolved. But when that horse is out there grazing and it hears the birds and it is aware of the hare alongside it,
Mhm.
maybe they enjoy the presence of other animals too.
Yeah. The calming, a safety, maybe a safety in that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because ultimately, when we feel calm and safe, we know we're safe, it feels nice. So
Yeah.
it's a pleasurable thing. So there we
Wow.
go. And it's just evolved to the days now where we pay to go in the zoo to watch them, but I've totally forgotten
Well,
that,
exactly. And then are there signals even, are they hearing even those
yeah,
signals? Can they even
exactly.
get the echoes?
But maybe it all
Mm.
traces back to when
Yeah.
we
So
were
then
all
maybe
sharing.
is maybe that looking out the window almost a yearning to go back to that, to find that
Well, it,
natural.
yeah, that's something we were talking about. It may well be. It may well be. There's so many different ways that we can, look at it. It is pleasurable.
Mm.
Are we looking for connection? Is it an echo of the past? I just think it's
Yeah.
fascinating
Oh
to,
yeah.
like I say, it just suddenly popped into my head. Why do I love watching the deer? I mean, I do, but why do I
What
love
is
watching
it?
the
Yeah.
animals so much?
What's in
What
that?
is it? What is it that makes it pleasurable?
Yeah. Oh, fascinating, fascinating. Well, lots already to ponder. Oh, wow, we haven't even gotten into the work you do. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so let's go on, and we would love to hear your story. What took you to live in the world with horses as you do now? Not what
Mm.
you do with them and not how you share space with them, but what brought you here?
What
What's
got
your
me there?
story? Yeah.
Well, It's a bit of a mystery as to why I was born obsessed with horses, but my big brother does say that when I was little, my big brother is like 12 years older than me, and he tells me that I used to make him get down on all fours so I could ride a horse around the room. And I'm the youngest of four. Um, my mum wasn't an animal person at all, so we didn't have a house full of animals. I was allowed a terrapin, eventually a gerbil, had a stick insect, but no cats, no dogs. But I was just obsessed with horses. And so big things in my early life, I remember TV programs like, so this we're going back to late 60s, early 70s. So we've got Champion the Wonder Horse, we've got the Virginian, we've got White Horses, Follyfoot. UK people will remember those. And we've got books, which were an amazing entry into the horse world. So I can remember being on holiday when I think I was 5, and we were allowed to choose a holiday book to read. And I went into the newsagents, and there was this book with a picture of a pony on the front. And it was something called Jill's Gymkhana, which was one of those kind of quite quaint old 1950s books, part of a series.
Mhm.
But it was a book I had to have. It was above my age group, and the first sentence I could tell you today is, I am the Jill concerned, meaning I'm the Jill of the title. Could I read that sentence? I hadn't got, I thought it was conquered, not concerned. Couldn't make sense of it at all. But I stuck at it because if I could get those words, I could enter the world of horses. So that was, leading me to more knowledge, if you like. Um, and when I was about 4 or 5, I think it was, m- mum and dad took me and my sister, who's a few years older than me, to a local, I'm going to say riding school. It was a lovely man who was a retired police officer, and he had a few ponies, and we could go down there and get led around on them. And he became one of my first influences. He was a very gentle and calm person around the horses. And from then on, really, my quest in life was just to find horses. So I wasn't at that point going to be able to have one. So there was a stud farm about 10 minutes from where I lived. So I would persuade mum to take me for a walk around the stud farm so I could peep through these massive doors, because it was a stud farm owned by the Rothschild family, which are, very kind of the local gentry. Beautiful, beautiful old stables, with a gravel courtyard and fields of thoroughbreds and 2 donkeys. So I could just walk through there and be along, just spend ages standing by the fence. I mean, give my mum her due, she was very patient while I just stood, smelling horses. It was wonderful. Then lucky enough to be taken, because unfortunately the first riding school closed down. Um, and lucky enough to find another one when I was about 9. And in those days, you could have child labour. So I could go to the riding school all weekend, muck out, groom ponies, lead them around, and then the ultimate treat was to ride the ponies bareback back to their field on a Sunday. So they had the week off. And it was run by a beautiful family, lovely, friendly people. And then when I was 11, just about to turn 12, the worst thing that can happen to you when you're that age is the riding school was closing and moving to Devon. So my world was broken.
Mhm.
By this point, at school, I was very academic, so I got by okay at school, but I was getting comments from my English teacher saying, Debbie, if I gave you an essay about outer space, you'd get a horse in it somehow. Can we please write about something else? So the obsession was still there. Um, and I remember going for a walk with my friend to try and find another riding school that we could go to. Came back, and I was met with my sister's insanely smiling face because Dad had announced that we could choose a horse each from the riding school.
Hmm.
And that day, my world changed. I mean, although I had written my dad a plan at least twice a year, every year, with all the reasons why he should buy me a horse, I never thought that it would actually come to
Oh,
fruition.
wow.
And we didn't come from a wealthy family, and we'd actually had our first abroad holiday that year. So I'd convinced myself that the horse was not going to be this year, but here we were. So the horse that I actually was responsible for looking after at the riding school had already been sold. So I spent my sort of overnight because we were going to visit the riding school the next day to choose a horse. And I spent my night just thinking, who's it going to be? It could be Sooty, it could be Max, it could be Jonathan. I was running through all the kind of things. And when I got there, Pat, who ran it, said, do you want to try Rosa? Um, and I was speechless because Rosa was not part of the riding school. Rosa was just this fairy tale Palomino pony, part Arab, who was in a field next door and was ridden by, um, I think it was the owner's stepdaughter, uh, something like that. So um, I didn't think there was any chance of having Rosa. So I went out for a ride on her and I was shaking. And it was quite an odd situation because Tracy, who rode Rosa, generally took me out and she kept saying, you'll love her, you'll love her. And then going, but I don't want you to have her. So, but I mean, I came back and they said, how did you get on? I was just like, I love her. And all's well in the end because Rosa had had a foal and Tracy had the foal to bring on, who is a 3-year-old.
Oh, there you
So
go.
it was all perfect. Um, and from that day forward, my sister and I, had our horses. So the world was ours. And I've never been without a horse since.
Wow.
Now, everyone always asks you, don't they? What do you do with your horse? What did you do? Well, what I didn't do was much competition. I kind of went through the motions of a few gymkhanas, but we didn't have transport, so it had to be within riding distance. And that world never grabbed me. All I wanted to do was spend time with my horse. So yeah, I rode. My best thing was just riding out on my own round the woods, me and my pony.
Hmm.
Um, and Rosa stayed with me. So I was just turned 12 when she came into my life. And she stayed with me for 18 years until the day she died. So by that point, I was, what, 30. So she was really with me for my formative years. And Rosa and my sister's horse were kept at a farm, again, kind of on livery, but it was just a wonderful place. It was a lovely family farm with a few people that kept their horses there. And my sister and I both did the academic route of college and getting proper jobs, if you like, in order to keep our horses because we didn't want to sell them ever. And um, I chose my university based on the fact that what was I going to study? I was going to study English literature because I love stories, right?
Yes.
So English literature it was. English literature is pretty much the same every university through the country. So I would choose the university which was near the sea and near Dartmoor, where there were wild ponies, and I could go riding at the weekends. Perfect. So I went to Exeter, um, and it was beautiful. So again, I'm pursuing my aim of finding horses wherever I go. Um, but we weren't really destined to work in an office, so we came up with the idea of could we possibly get our own place? Well, my sister was going to get a place. We were going to run a livery yard there. Um, that morphed into teaching Western riding because that was a whole other avenue that I went down.
Mm.
Long story. We won't go into that one today. But again, it was all about relationship with the horses. I was always looking for the way of being with the horses because the bit that I've missed out is the riding schools I went to were nothing like the riding schools of today. You had lessons in the paddock, probably about 6. By the time you could stay on at a canter in a straight line, you were riding out round the countryside.
Yeah.
So it wasn't about 20-meter circles. It wasn't about dressage or jumping or anything. It was about just riding and being with your horses. Um, so sort of going through the Western riding teaching and a bit of livery took me on a very unplanned journey to where I am today. So I'll leave that story there, but you can see it's just kind of
Oh,
just an unplanned meandering of a horse obsessive leading me wherever it took me. As long as there was a horse at the end of it, I was happy.
I was happy to go there. Following the horse.
Yeah,
That's beautiful. I love that story of the book
yeah.
and how determined you were to get through that sentence because you knew it was going
Oh,
to take
I'm
you
stubborn
there.
when there's a horse involved.
I
But it
know.
unlocked a beautiful world. I mean, as I
Absolutely.
say, I ended up studying English literature, and when my own son was younger, some of the, you know, some of my favorite horse books I read again to him, and I realised what a profound influence they'd had on me. So there was a series called Ginny at Finmorrie, which was set in Scotland, and it had a very strong Celtic influence there. It's quite a spiritual influence,
Hmm.
and it had moved away from the 1950s, very nice chintz furniture, kind of world into a world that I understood, a modern world that I understood. So yeah,
Oh, and what's the name of the series?
it's Ginny at Finmorrie.
Very Scottish.
And it's by a lady called Patricia Leach, which I think was Leitch.
I will look that up. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's so interesting to hear you read that and find those resonant parts for myself. It's like, yeah, yeah, I understand that part. I
Yeah.
understand that part. Uh, so I'd love to hear, we would love to hear about what you do now. What you found, where you are, how you run it. Um, I'm trying to be very cognizant of the language I use.
Mm,
Um, I believe it holds weight in how our relationship is with horses. So I am trying
yeah.
not to use the word work with horses.
Yeah.
And I know you're very cognizant of the words you use, and that goes to safety, and that speaks to what you
Mm,
do. So my question is, let's talk about, or have you talk about the sacred space you hold with horses now and what
thank
can
you.
someone expect
Yeah.
if they come there? And I
Yeah.
will open that floor for you.
Thank you. So my horse journey eventually, as I say, in an unplanned way, led me to start Horses Helping People with my partner Dave. And I agree with you about the language, Linda. Um, Sometimes it's difficult and we slip up and we can always find better ways of saying things. So I, in the spirit of mindfulness, I will say sometimes if we slip up, awareness that we've done it is a starting point. Have compassion for yourself, and then the awareness can lead us to change. And I think it's the process of change when we kind of slip into using language like using. Um, that can really help us think about, okay, is it? What is it that I'm doing? How do I want to describe that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Hmm.
One of the early things when we set up Horses Helping People, which I suppose I should backtrack a little bit. I was teaching Western riding and again in a totally unplanned and coincidental way. I was asked to do some work at a therapeutic horsemanship centre about half an hour away from me, which had just been set up. And initially, I was asked to teach people Western riding. That's what my job was going to be. It didn't turn out to be that straightforward. There were far too many people for the number of horses we had. And I was working with adults with long-term mental health problems. So very often, because of the medication they were on, there would be an after dinner, after lunch slump, um, where people really weren't very active. So um, we started to do other things with the horses. So this is actually where I met my partner, Dave. And, horses, again, were our common bond. And we weren't given any training as to how to do this work. So we had up to 10 clients a day with a variety of different mental health problems. And I'm not saying that this is the ideal on the job training, but luckily it worked for us. But the way that we made it work was because we just took what we knew, and all we knew was how to work with horses. So if you think of a horse as a being that you're trying to develop a relationship with, um, and if you've got half a ton or a ton of horse who doesn't want to do what you're asking, then my favorite thing is not to try and force them to do it, but to try and find that compromise and find out our common ground and how we can get along. And we just did that with our clients as well, some of whom did have violent backgrounds and such like. But they didn't when they were with us because it was a different feel to the place. So um, as you know, the horse being the common bond for me and Dave to work together, it was for all the clients as well. So that's how we kind of initially just developed the way we were working. It wasn't a conscious thing, but it's just what we knew and what seemed to work. And then we decided to set up Horses Helping People because we had quite strong views about how we wanted to work with the horses. And I say work with the horses because at the previous place, there was a feeling of the horses working for us. And we wanted to turn it around because the horses were showing us different things that could work for people, which didn't involve climbing on their backs, which was my initial remit to go in and teach Western Ride. And we also, as outsiders to the world of mental health, because I'll make it clear at this point that we're not therapists. We don't claim to do any counselling or, our boundaries are quite strong around where we go with clients. So the safeguarding on that is important. So although we work with people with mental health issues amongst many other kinds of people, we don't work on their mental health issues directly, if that makes sense. But as sort of outsiders to the world of mental health, what was really striking us was that all these people were adults with long-term mental health problems, but they seemed to be coming from similar backgrounds. So it might have been people that had been in care. It might have been people that are having problems with substance misuse, and that substance misuse might have come from childhood abuse, so many reasons. And we thought, well, why can't we work with people before they get to being long-term patients? Can we try and do earlier kinds of interventions, just to turn things around a bit? So that's when we decided to set up Horses Helping People. And our initial kind of, I don't know whether you'd call it a mission statement or just something we wanted to have as a foundation of Horses Helping People, was the idea that therapeutic horsemanship is the bringing together of horses and people to improve a person's mental, physical, and/or emotional well-being. But it should never be to the detriment of the horse's mental, physical, or emotional well-being. And yes, ideally, it should be to the improvement of the horses as well, if we can make, if that can happen.
Yeah.
But the checkpoint is it should never be to the detriment. That's the point at which you end a session if you find that that's happening. We can have neutral sessions, sometimes that's how the day goes. The horse is neither, the horse is part of it. They're not having specially a benefit, but they're definitely not, having a detrimental session. And that's what was really important for us. And, we were seeing some things go on in the world of bringing horses and people together that we were uncomfortable with. So we wanted to get ourselves very much in control of what we were offering
Hmm.
and how it was run. And um, I'm just going to throw in a great quote by Gandhi here, which
Hmm.
is, I'll never get it exactly right, but it's, you can tell a lot about a society of people by the way they treat their animals.
Yeah.
So what was clear to us that if vulnerable people were coming to us, maybe people that had had some kind of bullying in their life or some form of abuse for, verbal, physical, whatever, the way that we were with the horses told the people whether they could feel safe with us,
Hmm.
because the horses are the vulnerable beings in this too.
Yeah. Nice.
So all of this was stuff that we were learning as we went along and, developed and developed. So the idea initially, why we called ourselves therapeutic horsemanship, is because it was based on horsemanship, really. It was based on just coming and spending time with our horses. And it was originally, um, the sessions were some mix of things like grooming, learning about the horses, massaging them, riding them, leading them, um, work on maybe a vegetable garden, conservation stuff, looking after the horses in terms of pooping in the fields, feeding them, that kind of thing. So, depending on who was coming, whether it was children, adults, one-to-one, or a group, we could be doing any of those things. Herd watching figured largely
Hmm.
early on because that was something we'd discovered at the place we originally worked at, was in that afternoon slump when the medication was kicking in and people were feeling a bit sleepy. My job was to teach riding. That wasn't going to happen.
No.
So we would just go out and sit in the fields. And then people started asking questions about what the horses were doing. And we
Hmm.
started just talking about them. And then it developed. And then we realized there was like a million and one ways that you can herd watch according to who you're with. So that was a really, really important thing. So from early days, actually learning about the horse's lifestyle was an important thing. What
Hmm.
do the horses do when we're not asking them to do something, when we're not around impacting their choices? So to a certain extent, you can never be far enough away from a horse where you're not impacting it in some way.
Yeah.
But certainly sitting quietly outside a field, is a different feeling to having the horses in the arena or at the yard and doing some kind of task with them.
Sure. Yeah. Oh.
So early days, we're talking 2008, that kind of time. It was busy stuff. We were working with schools, we were working with um, adults with mental health issues. We'd have some groups, we'd have some one-to-ones. And we worked pretty much on the idea that anyone could come to us if they could benefit and we could keep them safe, coming back to that word again.
Yeah.
So very often, word would get round, someone would hear about us, they'd pick up the phone, because in those days people still spoke to each other. Um, and they would say, my daughter has XYZ problem, can you help her? And sometimes we'd say, we don't know because we haven't worked with that kind of condition before. However, if you tell us all about her and her needs, and she comes for a visit and can tell us about herself and her needs,
Mhm.
we can work out if we can keep her safe, if we know what kind of behaviours to expect. Um, and we would work uh, in liaison with so if the person was getting help elsewhere, we would need to be aware of that. So,
Mm.
but very often people would come to us because they weren't engaging with help elsewhere. So in this world of horses helping people, not as the organization, but as the idea, you've got the therapists out there that are very much doing, working as a treatment plan, and a person comes to us with, XYZ problem, and they will work on that problem. We do it differently. So the same person might come to us with the same condition, but we're not working directly on that condition. We're just saying, okay, you're going through a tough time, come and hang out with the horses.
Mhm.
You know, level one is you're having a bit of a crap life at the moment. If we can give you 1 hour a week where you're having a happy time, that might just sustain you through it. Level two is you start to find out a bit more about yourself
Yeah.
because you don't need to be a therapist. You just need to be around horses. You need to be able to hold a safe space for people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, even if you go to think back to the days where you go for lessons at a riding school, people were always having big discoveries about themselves, riding
100%. Yeah.
instructors. Some of them are sympathetic, some of them weren't. So just being around horses is going to bring different stuff up for you. But then moving on, it's never been static with us. Things have always developed because with our horses, we keep them to the end of their lives. So horses are going through different life stages. That has an impact on what we offer. New horses will come in. That has an impact on what we offer. Because anything that goes on in the horses' lives, like a new herd member, becomes part of the sessions. Because we never, even in the days where we offered some riding, we never offered it as an expectation that that you could definitely have it. It wasn't a right, it was a
Mhm.
privilege if it was okay for the horse on the day.
Yeah.
So one of the big changes, well, kind of two changes came hand in hand. Our reliable riding horses got older, and it became the right time to physically retire them because, the work was going to start getting harder for them. So what do? We had a herd of about 11, 12 horses. Very often people retire their horses, they look to rehome them and get a replacement. But that's not our style. Ours are with us till the end. Because for me, it's always been relationship first.
Yeah.
I learned that from Rosa, my first pony, and it's continued.
Mhm.
So if you've got 12 horses, that's plenty, Dave would tell me, even though I slightly disagreed. But yeah, okay, I can see his point. So do you just go on getting more and more horses? Well, there comes a point at which you can't give those horses you've got the attention you would like to.
Yeah.
So we decided just to not offer riding then. If these horses that we've got can do it, too bad if people wanted to do it. They weren't
Yeah.
going to get it anymore.
Yeah.
And we'd kind of worked out that a lot of the benefits were on the ground anyway.
Yeah.
The real, stuff was happening when people were interacting with these horses in a different way.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. And the other thing was mindfulness came into our environment again in a slightly unplanned way. One of our volunteers went on a mindfulness course because she was studying to be a counsellor. And this was about in 2011. And she came back and she said, I can't believe how much this has got in common with what we do in the therapeutic sessions because it's all about awareness. It's all about senses, like we
Mhm.
were discussing earlier, about getting out of your head and into your body.
Yeah.
So where we're talking about seeing life from the horse's point of view, yeah, and being around a horse, you need to be aware and in the moment because if you're thinking about what you're going to have for dinner tonight, that's when the horse treads on your foot. So, there's a reason there for being focused. But we felt a little knowledge was a dangerous thing. Mindfulness was not the buzzword it is today. Not a lot
Yeah.
was really known about it. And we were moving premises because we were lucky enough to be in a position where uh, we were looking for a permanent base. I say lucky, it was partly because where we rented, the landlord was going to develop it. So we were kind of pushed into it. But in the overall scheme of things, it was lucky because we
Mhm.
ended up at, where we are today. Um, So we concentrated for a year or two on getting established at the new premises because that's a whole other story where we just moved into a field and had to build a whole centre. That's one for another day. But I was then at my brother's birthday party and didn't know many people. And one of his friends who I didn't know that well, but knew a little bit, remembered her from my childhood, and she was working in mental health, so she had been over to visit Horses Helping People before. And she said, well, I've just been made redundant and I'm actually going up to Bangor next week to do my mindfulness teacher training. And I was like, hang on, I think I feel an opportunity coming on here. I might just be giving you your first job before you've even done the training. So I started looking for funding so that we could actually experiment with this and see if the germ of an idea we had could actually be put into practice. So just at the right time where we were saying we don't want to continue with riding, it's not feeling right for us now, here came an opportunity into our lives. So we were really lucky to be given funding, partly by our local council, to experiment with meditating with horses and mindfulness. At which point I thought, this is amazing. My life's work is done here. And I just, unfortunately, mum and dad had passed by this point, but I just thought back to my childhood and giving my dad all those plans as to why he should buy me a horse and how I would make it pay. Here I am getting
And here
paid by
you
the
are.
council to
Yeah.
meditate with horses. So yeah, good. I'll tick that box. But of course it was, it wasn't the pinnacle of my life because it was just beginning that adventure of experimenting with whether the horses would enjoy what we were doing or benefit from it, or wouldn't it be okay for them at all? We didn't know. It's easy to, with your human head, to think, oh, meditation is a wonderful thing. We're doing
No.
mindfulness. It's all about being zen and gentle and lovely. So of course the horses will love it. You can't look at it with your human head. You have to experience it
Yeah.
from their point of view and ask them. So we literally tried, different practices, different mindful practices, meditating with all the different horses in different locations, what worked, what didn't work. We had Lucky the sheep, we had the turkeys. They all got involved if they wanted to. So we could find out what worked. And circumstances mean that over the years since then, which was like 2013-ish, we've now been doing it for over 10 years. It's now the major part of our
Mm.
program. We've had so many amazing experiences through the mindfulness program, working with groups like Addiction Recovery, Women's Refuge. So many people have been through the program. We've just finished, within the last few weeks, we've finished our first mindfulness introduction course for people with learning differences. So learning disability group came to us and we adapted the program again and it was wonderful.
Wow. It, yeah, as I'm listening, I'm hearing it feels like it's gone from action to a non-action.
Yeah, doing to being.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, there's still an element of both because people are different.
Mm,
So I still do one-to-one therapeutic horsemanship sessions. And there are some people that come to me that really like to do the grooming, really like to do a bit of leading,
hmm.
but it will be within the framework of what's okay for the horses that day. So very often,
Exactly.
um, if I've got a person with me that I know can follow basic instruction and is physically able to move if I need them to, I will take them out in the field with the horses loose so the horses can choose whether they get groomed or not in a
Yeah.
very obvious way because they've got acres of land to walk away from
Oh,
us if
for
they don't
sure.
want to
Yeah,
be.
yeah.
Um, and that's lovely. If they walk away, it's fine. We just do something else. We just
Exactly.
move on to another horse to see if they want to be groomed. They can choose their brushes. They can show us where they want to be. I don't halter them up in these situations.
No, no.
Um, so they can move around and say, I want to be groomed here. Can you scratch my back for me? So that it's grooming about bonding. It's not grooming about getting the horse clean.
Yeah,
But again, I'll come back to safety because I am so big on safety that
of
all
course.
participants have got to be safe in this interaction.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
in a way, it's safer because if you've got a horse on the end of the rope that doesn't want to be doing what you want it to be doing, that's when a wreck happens. But
Yeah, yeah.
um, in another way, it's about knowing your horses and knowing your participants. Because
Yeah.
if a horse is, if the herd has got that antsy energy, maybe the flies are around, maybe,
Mm,
something's happening in the field next door, that's when you choose to change things. So,
absolutely. Yeah. It takes
uh,
your, yeah,
our
yeah.
participants are really good at with that because um, I think, what people can expect when they come to us is that things are within a framework. So we might have activities, whether they're doing activities or being activities, which sounds a bit back to
Mm.
front, but I would
Oh,
class that more
makes
as the
sense.
herd watching or the breathing with, or um, they know that those things only take place when the horses are happy with that, and we might actually set off to do one thing and then change it because one
Then,
of the most sort of important things for me is that people get to know the horses. So
yes.
our horses are their own selves. They're not here to help us. They're not therapists. They're not archetypes. They're nothing like that. They're, you know, my gang that I live with, and people get to know them if they want to be with them.
Yeah.
I don't take big groups of people out into the fields with the horses
Hmm.
in case, because horses need their space too. I with a one-to-one,
Hmm.
I can feel the energy of the person and the horse. Um, I'm quite an introverted person. I pick up on quite a lot, so I can get overwhelmed by too much people energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know my limitations in terms of that.
Absolutely.
So
And
I,
if you're leading a group
mhm,
and you're overwhelmed, that's going to
mm,
translate into the horses.
absolutely,
Yeah.
because the horses, um, I'm the one that they're gonna turn to. And I don't mean that in terms of I'm a leader or any of those
Mm,
outdated modes. It's just that I'm familiar.
yes. Yeah.
So they know my normal behavior.
Exactly. She's different today. What's
She's
up?
different today. What's
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
on? Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Um,
As you're talking about that overarching theme of safety,
mm,
and I was talking to somebody about this the other day, but in the world we live in, so many people don't know what safety feels like. And we may
yes.
term that into comfort zone, but it's
Mm,
this safety net. And I believe the world we live in, a lot of people don't know what that feels like. So to be able to come
mm,
to a place like yours and feel safety for
mm,
an hour
mm.
is priceless.
Yeah. It's a funny old world, isn't it, at the moment?
Yeah.
Always has been, I guess. But the wonderful thing is, because they're getting to know the horses, they learn their safety from the horses because they see how when the horses feel safe and if and when they don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if the horses are not feeling safe, they know that we'll do something to change that. And I think that you bring, as someone that does this work, I think people bring their own personality to it so much because
Mhm.
as a sensitive person, I would say I'm a great fan of staying inside my comfort zone. I'm not a seeker because the world can be overwhelming to me.
Mhm.
I don't need to go and seek out sensory thrills because I get enough just getting out of bed in the
Exactly.
morning. Do you know what I
Exactly.
mean? Um, I feel things deeply. So I'll
Yeah.
feel things deeply every day. I don't need to go out in search of it. There are other organisations you could go to who are all about pushing the comfort zone.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I can't work like that. So,
Mhm.
we'll
So,
each attract the people that need to come
of
to us.
course, absolutely.
Yeah.
Somebody suggested to me once it was growing our edges.
Yeah,
And I thought
nice.
that was a beautiful way of being able to stay safe,
Yeah,
yet I can grow my edges just a little bit, just like a flower grows.
that's
And
beautiful.
it's a very gentle way of
Yeah.
stretching
We're
a
not
little bit.
pushing on, We're not pushing each other out of aeroplanes. We're just
No, no, we're just
exploring the boundaries of what feels safe and what can go a little bit further. Yeah, I like that.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The other thing that I
Mhm.
think people get a lot of with us is laughter. We don't take
Yeah.
ourselves too seriously.
Excellent. Excellent. I
Yeah.
have still have a picture of, is it Dollar?
Dollar with the Wellington.
With the welly, with the rubber boots.
Yeah.
And you'd give him the
Yes.
old wellies.
So, what you're referring to there, Linda, is the fact that our horses like playing games with Wellington boots, and they have invented quite a lot of games. Sadly, some of the ones we've lost were the greatest Wellington players.
Oh
So there's
no.
not so much Wellington playing going
Oh
on
no.
anymore.
Oh no. Well, I
But
will always cherish that moment of
yeah, yeah, that they still have their. I mean, Dollar will always find ways to make people laugh. Um,
yeah.
I say find ways as if he's doing it deliberately, but I really feel sometimes. So Dollar is a big, well, big to me, 16 hand horse who's been with us since he was weaned. He was a Christmas present
Oh
to us,
wow.
and he's just the most emotionally sorted horse I have ever known. He has no hang-ups. Nothing has troubled him through his life.
Wow.
So he's just there and available for everyone. Curious, he wants to know what's going on. But one of his things is he will pull the electric fence stakes out. He's worked out that
Oh dear.
the wire goes through them, that's electrified, but the tops of the stakes aren't.
Oh, oh
So
dear.
he'll pull them
Intense.
out, lay down like, 4 or 5 in a row, walk over the top of them. At which point, the other horses in the herd are going, "How did you do that? How do
Show
I?"
me.
But if I spot sometimes that he's loosened a few, and so I know that if I leave it, they're going to be on the floor, I'll go up, stick them back in, and he'll follow me round, just pulling them out again, just blatantly behind me.
Oh my
It's just,
goodness.
oh, so yeah, and he knows he makes people laugh.
Yeah.
He has impeccable comic timing.
How's that way?
So
Yeah.
they,
Yeah.
I said earlier, they're not our therapists, they're not archetypes, but they are characters. They have
Yes.
their
I love that
characters.
characters.
And
Yeah.
we want those characters to shine through. Dollar is a comedian sometimes, but what we don't want is for him to be labeled that. So on our website, we
Mm.
actually do all we have about the horses. They are on our staff page, so they're listed under staff because I
Mm.
think that's
Yeah.
where they should belong. And they have that, I think it's just their name, maybe their age, perhaps.
Yeah.
Do we do breed? Not even sure about that. What we don't do is write a little character analysis of them.
No.
Because if I were to write about Dollar's character, that's about my perception, not about what's necessarily true for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I actually love doing herd watching with people that don't know my herd,
Yeah.
and even better if they don't know horses, because then they won't be labeling them. When I watch my horses, I have emotional baggage with them. I
Of
have,
course.
I've known these horses for years and years, so I have shared experiences and
Hmm.
I have some knowledge that may, if we were playing the game that we sometimes do when we're herd watching, which is the horse is walking across the field, what do we think they're going to do next?
Yeah.
I might have some knowledge because I've watched that horse every day for years and I know what they mostly do, but I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And I love when people don't know horses at all. They really see them for who they are, not for the labels.
Not labels. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's
yeah.
perfect. I
And
love that. Yeah.
and often will like reveal things to me, or I'll say, I've never seen it like that before. But yeah, you're right.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So can you share a client story or somebody that's come out per se? Names changed for privacy, but
Yeah, sure.
do you have one that
Um,
maybe jumps out? Many, I'm sure, but
yeah. So I've actually jotted a few down because I thought what I'll do is I'll see where our conversation goes and then see which one feels right today. And I want to actually do 3 mini stories on the same
sure.
theme because it's a little bit like my memorable moment earlier. It wasn't the
Mm,
close-up, intimate light bulb moment. It was kind of different. It was a more gentle, bigger picture thing than that. And these three stories are about people just being touched by a horse at one point in their life. So the first one is uh, we were running return to work courses for people that had got barriers to getting back into the workplace. And we had one guy come up from the West Country who had got involved with drugs and he wanted a fresh start. Only a young lad, sort of early 20s. And he came to us and he had tattoos. And this is going back about 10 years, I think. He had tattoos. He had I can't think what they're called, but the ear piercings where you've got, a hole formed into your ears. So he had quite a striking appearance to him. Um, and you might almost say quite an intimidating experience. So what he often found when he was amongst people was that they would shrink back from him. But amongst the horses, we found the horse. So he helped us out with jobs, do all kinds of things. When he was in the field, Louis, our one of our horses, would not leave him alone. He was just glued to his side. So if this guy was going backwards and forwards to fill up the water trough and going backwards and forwards with a bucket, Louis was by his side every step of the way. And the extraordinary thing about this is that Louis is a horse that generally stays back. So he's he as far as we know, he's not got any abuse in his background. We've had him from quite a young age, but he's just super sensitive. He's like a wizard.
mhm,
He takes everything in, and occasionally he steps forward. And when he steps forward, it's normally, and I'll say occasionally, it might be once every 6 months or something, he steps forward to people that are in quite a difficult place that need deep healing, I would say. That's the only way that I can describe it. The first time I saw it happen, I was just like, what's going on? Because uh, a woman had come to us, she'd been coming for a few weeks, and she was a very gentle lady, but background of eating disorders and um, attempts to take her own life and long-term mental health issues. Beautiful, beautiful lady. And she asked if she could choose one of the different horses. Because so far she'd had very, very gentle buddies. She had no horse background herself. And she chose Dollar. And
mhm,
so we were talking about the difference in energy that she would experience working, being with Dollar, just being around him.
mhm,
I forget what she was going to do. I think she was going to groom him or something. And as we were stood at the gate talking about that, Louis stepped forward, just out of nowhere, came out of nowhere, and he just put his head in her chest. She burst
mhm,
into tears, and I just stepped to the side because that was nothing to do with me.
mhm,
I ensured again that she was okay. These, when you get a feeling it's either tears of distress or tears of release, and these were release.
mhm.
And it went on for literally about 20 minutes,
Wow.
and then they just separated. And I said to her, look, I didn't initiate that. I had no part in that. That is between you and Louis. Um, if you want to share anything, I'm fascinated because I haven't seen that before. But if you don't want to share anything, that's equally okay because that was your and his moment. And she said she'd had years of counselling and hospital admissions and things, and she said that was better than anything I've ever experienced in terms of healing. It was like he knew my pain and he saw straight into it. Um, so I was like, wow, that was the first time I'd seen Louis do that. And then he did it on other occasions. The wonderful thing is, once someone's experienced it, they come back and they go, can I see Louis again? And I'm like, probably not, because
He's
as far as
done.
he's concerned, you're fixed. If you need it, you might do, but um, it's not something you have on demand at all. So that's Louis. He's very much a stay back, assess the situation, don't step forward, don't initiate touch unless you feel to step in there. With the woman I've just described, when he stepped forward, it was like he was in charge of the process. He chose that process. With this guy from the drug background, it was just like Louis was just like the most massive fan of him. He was just like, wow, you've come again. You're amazing. Let me just be right next to you. And it was totally different dynamic. And what I loved about that was, this guy that very often people would step back from him. This horse that he didn't know, that just saw the inside of him, just stepped forward and absolutely adored him. And so the way that that course worked, it was only for 6 weeks, I think. He was with us a couple of times a week for 6 weeks. And then he moved on, as often happens for us, with our clients in this way.
Mhm.
I'm going to tell you the next one now. And it was, we were working with a school for teenage boys with social and emotional and behavioural difficulties. And the boys were about 14
Mhm.
and came to us again with various labels, ADHD, anger management. And there was this one boy that had a very powerful energy about him. He had an extraordinary energy, is what I would say. And that energy was clearly destined to go stratospheric one way or stratospheric another way. It was
Mhm.
for good or for bad. And it all depended on his experiences over the next few years.
Mhm.
And it was the first time we'd worked with this school, and we'd worked out a little program that we'd put together. And I thought I'd do, massage in it, because that's quite often what I did in the courses. So I think it was about week 4. The boys had done grooming, so they kind of basically had the up close encounter with the horses, and they knew about, grooming for bonding and that sort of thing. And I said, do you want to do some massage with the ponies today? And they're like, oh, no, massage, that's for girls. Yuck. No, we're not doing that. So I said, okay, that's fine. We don't have to. We'll find something else. And after the session, I was thinking about it, and something was wanting me to experience it in a way that I couldn't quite let go of, which is a bit unusual.
Mhm.
So I thought about how I could present it differently. And the following week, I thought, oh, as they'd done the whole that's for girls things, I thought, we'll try a little bit of the stereo, generalizing, gendering thing. And I said, do you boys like football? Oh, yeah, 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 we love football. I said, oh, right. So you know that footballers quite often have injuries. So attached to the team, they'd have a physio. And they were like, yeah, yeah. I said, well, I was thinking, and this one boy went, it's all right, you can say massage, we don't mind, we'll do it. So
Smart.
the ponies came out for a massage, and this is something we've done with the ponies quite a lot, and we'll always keep an eye on them, but generally it's something that, it's a beneficial session for the
Sure.
horses. And the guy with the extraordinary energy was one of the ones that had been most kind of reticent about it. Uh, but one of the ponies, we had an older pony who had, she didn't belong to us, she belonged to our landlord at the time, and she had a bit of COPD, so she would often cough. And she really wanted to be with this boy. So he started to put his hands on her, and she just totally relaxed. And for the whole time that he was massaging her, we did a bit of talent and touch stuff, she didn't cough. And I was like, you've got a real skill for this. Look at this is the wonderful thing about horses. You get the instant feedback.
Of course.
Look at how she's responding to you. And he was like, oh. And then each following week, he asked if he could massage Pup. So again, 12-week course, we don't see them after that. We don't know what happens. And the third example involves the most amazing horse. All my horses are the most amazing horses.
Of
You
course,
know,
yeah.
for this story, Lexi is the most amazing horse. So Lexi was, she was a reining horse from Texas, and she'd competed internationally, and she'd been retired, but her owners knew. They watched her in the field, and they were saying she doesn't like it. Every time the younger horses come out, she's really upset because she's not involved. So they contacted us and said, is there anything she could do with you? So very unusually, we took on an older horse. We wouldn't normally take on a horse of that age. And when horses come to us, we give them as much time as they need before they're involved with sessions. So they will watch, they will familiarize themselves, feel comfortable with their living conditions, first of all, get some friends within the herd, and then they will watch when their friends take part in sessions so that they can see that there's, yeah, we're coming back to that word again. They can see they're going to be safe. We're going to look out for them.
Yeah.
But Lexi just got off the trailer, walked around and was like, I know what I'm here for. When are we starting? So on day
Mhm.
2, she did a mindfulness session with her. And then on day 3 or 4, we were working with a school group, which is our most challenging uh, clients, simply because of the conditions they find themselves living with. So it's a school for teenagers with complex conditions, very often autism coupled with something else. They might be having seizures, you know,
Mm.
various different things. Very often, so it goes up to the age of, I think, 19, possibly a bit more. So you've got some, you know, fairly hefty teenage lads coming
Mhm.
along. And sometimes they'll come with 2 support workers because the situation might get overwhelming for
Sure.
them. And, you know, physically they're displaying their frustration. So to keep them safe, they might need 2 support workers. When we've got people like that, we don't put them straight with the horses. It
Okay.
would be a very gradual introduction over fence, that kind of thing, you know, from a
Yeah.
distance, see how the person responded. Um, and with this guy, the school had told us he may never get out of the minibus. If he does, that's a win, okay? But he'd gradually got out of the minibus, and he'd got to the point where he was just kind of walking up and down our trackway, but no interest in the horses at all. Lexi watched this. She was in a stable, sort of like, or our stables look out over the arena area and the track where this guy was walking. And I was watching her, and she was like fixated on him, but she wasn't looking worried. She was looking fascinated, and she was looking like she wanted to get over there. I was like, well, this is not something I've really seen before. So I said to the support worker, look, I'm just going to bring Lexi onto the arena. I'm going to walk her around on there and see what happens, because she seems really fixated by him, but I'm not sure. Let's get her a bit closer. So I brought her onto the arena. My intent was to walk her around just on a loose rein
Mhm.
and to watch her responses as he walked up and down a pathway close to the arena.
Yeah.
He still totally oblivious to the horse. But Lexi was like, no, let's just not walk round, please. He's over there. Let's just go and get as close as we can and lean over the fence and see if I can touch him. It's like, Lexi, you can't touch him from here. Um, so I said to the support worker, look, I am really curious about this. I'm going to bring her out. She's going to be on a loose rein so she can make the choices. Can we see what happens? And I
Mm.
said, if it doesn't work out, we'll separate them. It's not a
Yeah.
problem. Um, and the the point at which I had to be the most careful was when she got close to him, right? Because I
Yeah.
didn't know what his response would be. So Lex is on a very loose rein. I said, where do you want to go, Lexi? She said, well, obviously I want to go to this boy. So he was walking away from us. She just followed him and she got closer and closer. And in the end, she just reached out and touched his ribs. And I thought, what is going to happen? And he kind of turned round, surprised, what's touching my ribs, saw a horse, turned away, kind of processed it. She touched his ribs again. And she's like, I want to walk with you. And he was
Mm.
like, okay, walk with me. I mean, he didn't verbalize it because he's nonverbal, but that was his demeanor in his body was, you want to walk with me, just walk with me. So we walked alongside each other. And over the next few weeks, I just started brushing Lexi, handed him a brush, and he started brushing and um and started brushing. And then every day, every week for his session, he would actually start looking for her.
Mm.
And again, soon it was time for him to leave that school. So what happened, we don't know. Now, my point of telling you those three stories where people with an extraordinary energy came together with horses that accepted that energy and saw the good in that energy meant that for those three people, they had a couple of months in their lives where they were totally accepted by a horse,
Mm.
and also they they experienced a horse actually seeking them out. Whatever
Yeah.
happened for those people, I don't know. They came from difficult backgrounds. What would their future hold? But I hope, like with the massage boy, I can only hope that in his future, if things went a bit spiraled out of control for him, he's got that memory to hang on to and he knows what happens when he uses that energy for good. So I just wanted to share
Yeah,
those.
no, they're moments of connection,
Mm,
and that as you're saying that, and it's not a manufactured connection.
no,
It's a
exactly.
natural connection, and you hear of a natural connection and heart connection is so healing.
Yeah,
That those are ugh, just
yeah.
beautiful moments of those. Oh,
It's just a felt thing. It's an experience that you can't set up.
you can't. No,
You,
no. And you say you
it,
follow the horse. You let the horse lead.
yeah.
Uh,
And I think as people that run the sessions, we have to be so, so careful that we don't project our own stuff onto it because
mhm.
so many people want that light bulb moment to happen. And so I've been in some situations where facilitators have described what's happening with a very odd perspective on it,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
about the human perspective, and it's not about the horse perspective. So the important thing in those situations for me as a horse person, because I would describe my facilitation style as being on the horse's side, if you like,
Mm,
for want of a better expression. But when Louis stepped forward for the lady,
mhm.
I could know him well enough to know that he was comfortable and he was choosing. And I could see that when she was crying, there was no point at which he was distressed by that. He
No,
wanted that interaction.
yeah.
With Puff the pony, who went to the boy for the massage,
Mm,
she actually, sought him out.
yeah,
And again, with her physical difficulties with her breathing, I was making sure that everything stayed calm, everything stayed okay.
yeah.
That was all good. And with Lexi, just extraordinary. She'd only been here 4 days and she just chose to work with that,
Yeah, yeah,
what on paper would be our most challenging client. He
for
had
sure.
the two support workers in case he got overwhelmed
Yeah.
and you know he could have seizures, so that was to be managed.
Mm,
But she just said that's what she's here for. So
yeah. Well, and
so
you talked about a light bulb moment, and light bulb moments when they're allowed to happen between the horse and the human, as opposed to facilitated,
Exactly.
then they're just that much more power. Like the the power in them is so much deeper than
Yeah.
if it's a facilitated moment.
And you don't need, when you experience that,
Hmm.
you don't need anyone talking you through it. You know, if you're the client or the participant who it's happening to, you don't need any facilitator explaining it to you and explaining how it's helped you.
Well, and
Because
yeah, that goes. I often think of that, and I also often work in that realm is allowing somebody to stay in the heart.
yeah,
And as soon as we start talking, it becomes in the head.
yeah.
So it's this moment of yeah, of just staying, allowing somebody to stay there, and no words are needed.
And the other amazing thing that horses bring to situations like that is that when that moment, when that wonderful kind of connection moment comes to a natural end, the horses just then are their wonderful grounded selves, which keep you in the reality of it.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, they
This
don't
is a
bring you down.
real thing that has happened. You're not, on some magic carpet ride.
No,
It
no,
makes it more special because this is the here and now, and this is
exactly.
how it is.
Yeah, and
And you
that
just
was what was
experience
needed.
that. That was
Not
what
not
was
the other
needed.
words. That was what was needed.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
Thank you for this. Thank you for all of this. This
Gosh,
is
it's a treat to be able to, you know, reminisce these things. You can imagine. So we've been working with Horses Helping People has been going since 2008.
wow.
So, and we worked with clients before then
Yeah,
as well. So many stories over the years,
I'd
so
say,
many precious
yeah.
stories,
And I
and so
would
many
love,
precious horses,
oh,
you know,
100, yeah.
horses that have we started up with that have, passed now.
Mm,
And it's lovely to think about them again and what they brought to us.
absolutely. So do you have any maybe closing um thoughts or maybe what's in your heart that you'd like to share as we close the gate on this episode of Inspire Me Equine?
Yeah, so I when you sort of sent me the agenda and it was, what do you think's in their hearts? I thought, like, I don't know what's in their hearts. That's for them.
Hmm.
But I took myself back to last weekend where I stood we were out looking for the ponies and I stood on the hill. We couldn't find the ponies. It didn't matter. Their presence was everywhere. But I imagined myself as a pony. I mean, I did it all the time when I was little. Why not do it now? But it was just so powerful sense of place and history, etc.
Hmm.
And I took myself back to that place when I
Hmm.
was thinking of this. And the words that came into my mind straight away were, I miss my family. So,
Hmm.
the sense of seeing those horses free living with choices, so powerful, living with their family bands. And what do we do to them? We
Hmm.
take them and put them on the human production line. Me the same as everyone else. But I've got one, I've had one mother and daughter, but apart from that, they just all come from different places, don't they? And they have to form their own kind of raggle-taggle family the best they can. And then maybe they get moved on again. So, as I say, I can't claim to know what was in their hearts, but as I stood up there on that hill and I could feel like the breeze through my mane as if I was that pale pony and
Hmm.
surveying the amazing landscape that was my home and the different smells of my surroundings, bringing me all that information that I needed. And the fact that I was free to choose to move in whatever direction I wanted to go with my family around me. or my chosen family if I'd moved my band,
Sure.
because I could move in whatever direction I felt my safety and my comfort lay.
Mm,
So that's what I would like us to be aware of with our horses is, we've talked today about how much those horses have given us.
yeah.
And they've all had family somewhere,
Yep.
and they've all had their choices taken away. All we can
Mm,
do is in the space that we can give to them is to give them the choices we can and try and recognize the difference between when we're having a true choice response and when we're having the remnants of a trained
yeah.
response
A learned
so that
response.
the horse
Yeah.
has learnt something that will
Yeah.
please us. Yeah,
Yes.
I can't remember who said it, but it's that wonderful saying of yes means nothing when no is not an option.
Yes. Yep. Yes.
So just,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
just, horses, free living horses and our domestic horses, they're not separate being, they're not separate species.
Mm-mm.
Our horses have all got that free living horse inside,
Yeah.
wanting to get out, wanting to make the choices. Let's give them as much value to their lives as we can. Don't necessarily always reach out and touch them. It's humans that want to touch, touch, touch.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes just be with your horses, and when you want to reach out and touch them, do them a favor and just breathe instead. Breathe alongside them.
Yeah, just be there. But it isn't that, again, I go back to having this. I love how multiple conversations happen for us, and having
Mm,
this conversation the other day about some of the one of the best, I'm gonna say best things, but one of the deepest things we can have with someone or some being is to just be with them. Just
yes.
sit in quiet, witness each other,
Mm,
and
yeah,
and no words exchanged. There is no need. And that
yeah.
is one of the most powerful things that we can do for any being.
See them for who they are and let
Yeah,
them experience you
for who you
for
are.
who
Yeah,
you are with
yeah.
all the busy human stuff stripped away.
Stripped
I had a
away.
beautiful experience with Goldie the other night, who just came and stood alongside me. And she's not one to initiate touch normally. And, I think Goldie was one I mentioned in the treasure hunt article.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly she was just very, very gently leaning into me. And it was the most precious, precious thing.
Just a moment, eh? A moment in
Yeah.
time. Well, thank you, Toby. I love talking to you. I love sitting and
Oh,
chatting with you in person or like this, but
yeah.
my heart is always more full
Oh,
when when we are complete. And so thank you for being
thank you
here.
for the opportunity.
Mhm. And thank you all for joining us in this circle today, whatever moment that you might be listening to us. I hope you are inspired by the horse or by the equine. And I will put a link to Debbie's story and our conversation on all of the sites that you would find a podcast and all of our Facebook sites that we know of. So we have Inspire Me Forward and we have Equine Leadership, and you can join us there. And I ask that you consider sharing this episode, as we like to say, or share it forward. You just never know who needs to hear these words that have been shared in this sacred circle. So thank you for being with us. From my heart to yours, stay well, stay connected, and stay inspired.